Cool, thank you. I was supposed to be over there, but then the moderator couldn't make it out of Paris for some reason, so now I'm the moderator, so good luck with that. Let's introduce ourselves first. Start down there.
Ladies gets first. So my name is Eva. I'm coming from Vilnius, Lithuania, and currently I'm working with the immersive content production company, meaning producing VR, AR, and all various different solutions, and tech part also. I joined the company 1 year ago. Before, I have a background working with film festivals in Lithuania. Then I worked for the National Film Fund, who funds film production, so very art house audience. And as well, I worked for the European Fund for also films and film industry or audiovisual industry in general. So that's the background I carry with the filmmakers and various players in the audiovisual industry. And I moved to VR, and what else I do and what is WIFT? It's a Women in Film and Television. It's an international network for women working in the film industry, in television and digital. So we're just building the community right now. And then I also joined a couple of years ago Lithuanian Game Development Association. So on the other side, I have this immersive and gaming understanding of the industries. So that's going to be the views I'm going to share today.
Cool, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Mantas. I'm, like it says, a Facebook lead for the Baltics at a company called HTTP. We are one of the 2 authorized sales partners for Facebook, and we cater the European market, in particular Latvia, Lithuania, as well as Estonia. And my background is fully in advertising. I've spent over close to a decade in trying to hammer out amazing solutions in digital advertising. So naturally, VR and AR kind of are right there on my radar. And yeah, I'd love to share more about where the industry is heading.
Well, you're going to. That's why we're here. Yeah. I'm Michael. I'm an urban designer from Copenhagen, but I also originally come from film. I went to the National Film School in Denmark, worked as a director and a screenwriter. And a lot of this festival, it's great. We're talking about tech, but I kind of want to take this to sort of more of an anthropological focus, like the human experience, because sometimes I just feel like we're overwhelmed by technology and all this new stuff, and it's all really cool, and sometimes we don't really question maybe what we're doing as often as we should. So I think to understand where we are and where we're going, I'm just going to do a little quick and dirty rock and roll history of storytelling so we understand where we came from. So humans have 3 basic needs: food, water, shelter. I have always said that the 4th basic need is storytelling. And some people will say that maybe it's sex, but before you get to sex, you need storytelling, right? You need to flirt, crappy pickup lines in bars, for example. It's all part of the storytelling to lead to something that the 5th basic need, perhaps. But so like for, the whole of human history, we told stories. We gathered around the fires, for hundreds of thousands of years. After the day was done, we bonded, we formed our belief systems, and we created our mythologies. Fine. Fast forward to ancient Greece. They loved their theater, and they really hammered out the rules for dramaturgy and storytelling. You would sit in an amphitheater for 8 hours a day, divided up into 2-hour segments, and watch your comedies and your dramas. And that lasted fine for a while. Then we invented the printing press. We had books. And then the 1800s, there were really 2 main disruptors in storytelling. One was photography. This amazing technology came along and blew us away. And then cinema. And that was really a game changer because it kind of was theater, but on the big screen. And it's interesting to consider that before the Second World War, films were about an hour in length. We went to the cinema for an hour and maybe saw 2 films and went out. After the Second World War, Orson Welles, the director, he took the format. He went back to the Greeks and Aristotle, who wrote it all down, and he formed the storytelling structure that we still use in Hollywood films and, well, all films today, this 3-act structure. And then we had television, which was a shorter format again. And really the biggest game changer, I think, in 300,000 years was in the 1980s with the music video. All of a sudden MTV came along, and we're having complex narratives shown to us in 1 or 2 second clips with a lot of music, right? And we could understand it. We adapt very, very quickly. And everything is just becoming compressed. And now I literally have, and maybe you do as well, I have friends that I communicate with on my on Messenger only in memes. Like we don't write words. We just like send funny memes to each other, and we actually express human emotions. We are funny. We're sad. We're all the whole range of being a human. We can do it with memes. So now we've gone from an 8-hour drama in ancient Greece to 5 frames in a GIF or a GIF, as the Americans say, and I can express everything I want to express in 5 frames. And then there's Twitter, super short form. And then there's you go to like Latin countries. In Denmark, we don't do this, but in Latin countries, they walk along and they use WhatsApp, but they speak into it. They're not on a phone call, but they speak long, complex messages on the middle of the street. And when you're from Denmark, you're going, shut up, like I don't need to hear your private life. And then they're listening to it. So like we have all of this stuff going on, right? But everything has been completely compressed into like nothing, but then ironically we have TV series again where you'll sit and you'll have a Greek, you'll watch Game of Thrones, you'll binge watch it for days like you're in a Greek amphitheater 2,000 years ago. So it's always changing. It's super organic. There's no one movement behind it, and it gets confusing. But we adapt so well to that. So I just want to ask now. I'll shut up now. Did I forget anything? No. Okay, but like, are you comfortable as a person, as a user, as well as the professional that you are, with what we have right now, all of the different complexities and the brief nature of modern communication and media?
Personally, I think I am. I'm still a bit struggling on managing it all with all meditations, the talks, and so forth. But yeah, it's helpful. So as far as helpful and brings me joy, I think that's a benefit. I mean, I don't have to travel, or I can catch up with friends who are far away, etc., etc. So those basic needs, or my family, I'm very happy. My mother started using Facebook and Messenger and other platforms, so we can share some images with her, also more daily among the family. On the professional level, talking about immersive technologies, I think it's coming, it's not yet maybe, but, and also you have to really dig and find the means why you're doing this. Because it's a very strong, powerful tool, and there are, the immersive technologies travel the also so-called Gartner's hype cycle of emerging technologies. So it has been on the hype, and now I think it's still finding the way in the industries, and it's already proved in some industries. There is some research made that it proved for some industries. And to mention one, it's from medicine. There are companies in France and Belgium who, with the help of VR, they help for the people to get into the mood before the operation. Not in the mood, but what's it called when usually would get the medicine to fall you asleep? But then, anesthesia, thank you. But now they're using VR. So it's a really strong tool. We have to watch out how we use it. And coming from knowing the gaming industry or the tech industry, or in general, I would come back to the point about the society. We have ones who are the leader, who love to innovate, who love the updates, and we have the other part of the society. I don't know the percentage, maybe there's some research made, but you have among friends the ones who never like to update their new, software on the app or phone. And so that part of the ones who love industry, and they're really pushing it all. So I think that the immersive technologies came from those hardcore coders or filmmakers who are tired of the format which exists right now, and then they're just exploring and texting and checking. Right. And enjoying while doing that. But of course, for the majority of the rest of us, we really should take care of how we use technology.
And what about you, Mantis? As Mantis, not Mantis from Facebook, first of all, but just like you, are you comfortable with the selection that we have?
Honestly, I feel old. I look at all these things that are happening, right, with AR and VR technologies, and I remember having this conversation where a couple of my friends kind of joined together in this video chat. And suddenly we started putting on these like augmentations of like making me into a dog, and whenever I stick my tongue out, it kind of licks the screen and things like. And I kind of felt like weird about it, like what's happening? Like, am I comfortable with this? Am I not? And weirdly, it kind of immerses you, it kind of pulls you in. So I think it's just a part of expanding that storytelling, right? Where we had very, I don't want to call it basic, but we essentially had stories that right now would probably find boring a little bit 2,000 years ago. What was happening, right? But essentially right now you have all of these tweaks that kind of make it richer, right? When color came to film, it was like something substantial. And I think it's the same thing happening here. Right now we have this tiny kind of increments in where the technology is getting us. And now it just gets you more comfortable. You can spend more time, and attention is the big currency, right? So right now, these augmentations kind of pulls me in. Me, personally, super. I like where this is going, but I still kind of feel already weird. Like, I don't know how to deal with it. It still is a little bit of a novelty. So for me, I like where this is going. I hope we get there sooner.
All right. I mean, it's not so much only like AR and VR. It's also like just the whole vast array of the stuff. I mean, I was thinking about in the history of storytelling. Now we also, like with Facebook, it's not your fault, but I mean, you know, we actually have eliminated sound, right? So you have you watch films on your phone on the train, and now there's subtitles, so that you don't have to have your sound on and irritate people around you. So we're actually eliminating sound as well. I mean, I just think it's quite wild, this development. I mean, how do you? Okay, now as Mantis from Facebook. I mean, how do you think like Facebook deals with their responsibility for storytelling, for broadcasting, you know, news and also memes and all the different, you know, media selection that we have? I mean, do you think that Facebook has a responsibility?
I think they do, right? And this is, again, as a representative, but not for Facebook, you know, just my opinion. Essentially, I think they do. And their responsibility comes of matching two parts. One is very immersive storytelling, something that can pull you in and hold your attention as much as possible. But at the very end, there's also kind of this, you're still in the society, right? You're still walking down the street, and you can't just suddenly, you know, be at the church, pull out your phone, and suddenly Michael Jackson is singing, right? So that's where it's getting that, you know, most of the platforms that are doing VR and AR, we're trying to kind of match the boundaries of how much of a story can we push out, and at the same time that people don't feel awkward about it that much, right? And this is where we actually see most of the trend coming with the technologies, with the storytelling, VR or AR or anything in regards to that. People keep pushing the boundaries. So for instance, when Facebook disabled the sound, it was super intrusive at that point. Like, you instantly get sound. People didn't like it. It was a bad thing, right? But now you have TikTok, right? And it's always on, right? The sound is always on. Whenever you pull it, it just constantly plays. So you adjust to it, and the immersiveness actually becomes normal. Some of the parts become normalized by the society, but it takes time. So I think everyone is trying to do it. Facebook is trying their own way, and this is where we are currently.
TikTok. I got a 12-year-old girl, so I know all about TikTok. God, I mean, are we? A lot of like a conference like this, and I speak at smart city conferences about urbanism and stuff. I mean, it's all of, you know. You said people are pushing the limits, but it's the developers. It's all these people trying to invent stuff that are pushing it, and the rest of us are just left trying to navigate. Oh my God, there's a new thing. You don't have the new thing? I got to get the new thing. And I mean, we're under this constant pressure to try the new things, right? And I mean, where does the responsibility lie in the people who are producing all of this tech? And you know, like, and when do we sort of stop as regular people with a phone filling up with new stuff and apps and experiences? I mean, where does the responsibility lie from the developers to do people actually need this, Eva?
Yeah, I don't work long with technology. It's just a couple of 2 years, but it's interesting you pointing at me. Of course, yeah, I'm representing right now the production company, and today 2 panels before on the big stage was being human in the age of machine learning, and can technology give a push for equal rights? Was 2 panels I mentioned, only women talking about this. So that's my point, that we have to have equality at least in who's creating those technologies, because that's my also a bit of sense, like how much of women creators we have in technology, and who would think through about the usage part more, or about the questions about the responsibility, because we'll be now very stereotypical, telling that guys are not thinking about that, they are just thinking about other parts of the technology, let's say, or while building it. So that's my point, and that comes also maybe from the film industry, which has a lot of that struggle, putting more women, not stereotypical on screen, behind screen. But I'm happy actually what I see in VR AR industry, that because of this empathy which is happening right now around the world with women getting involved, or of course there's research, business made that we have to have more diversity in the teams. It brings more benefits, and so that's why I think the women are more bravely going into immersive technologies, and I see much more women dealing in the technology sector than, for example, comparing to the film industry.
Do you think that'll have a more rational approach? Like having a
I just
gender
mentioned
mix?
2 panels, only women talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that's interesting from the organizers. Was it on purpose, or I think in those kind of conversations we have to include both genders, but I really believe, I'm thinking like how world would be if only women would run the governments, or if we would have more president women. Would we have 2 world wars and so forth? So there is a bit of history. But I think it just comes from the genders, because the women gave a birth and they care about how the children live in their lives in the society. We all created it. So why? This is a gender topic.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool.
Can I jump on this?
You go.
So honestly, right now, I think like new technologies, AR and VR, of the stuff that we're talking about, is fairly new adopters, right? It's already quite established. There's around 55 million considered VR units out there. But essentially, I think it all comes down to early adopters, right? And early adopters in general, they're a weird bunch, right? They're people that will not look at the cost benefit or how useful the thing is. They'll just want to try it, right? They just want to test it. So it's nice, right? And so these people, they set the stage for whatever is going to happen, right, in the next 2, 5, 10 years, right? And so it does come a point, I do agree with the point that we have to have diversity. Diversity will create something that's interesting for everyone, right?
Not only gender diversity, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, we can't force it, right? We can't just say, look, I don't care that this specific ethnicity group is not interested in the technology. We need to have them. We have to set the stage. Let's hear them out. Let's not do anything before they do something, right? That's going to halt technology in general development, right? So right now, when I look at VR and AR and what it's doing to the advertising industry and how it's actually competing and how much money is being spent on it, I think all of it is actually coming from the creativity part. And like you said, storytelling. It doesn't, it's not meant for just, some specific audience or something. It just, as a human, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, if you're, from Europe or from Asia. It doesn't matter. You just create a story that's compelling. And this is where I think we're kind of at the pivoting point. We have 15 million of units out there, probably going to have something around 80 by the next year. And so that now creates a massive audience. Now, anyone can create a message, anyone can create a story. Doesn't matter how niche the story is, it still will have a sufficient audience. And then now we would probably start seeing, the fast trends, the development, with that being included in every living room, etc.
So I remember before we came on stage, I remember a statistic from many years ago that for every hour we're alive, there's 10,000 hours of film and television produced. And that was an old statistic from before really the internet. So like I was trying to do some quick math, and I'm really bad at math. But with YouTube and Vimeo and all everything on our phones, that number is just astronomical. Do we need it? Do we need more storytelling in new tech formats? Maybe like with VR application instead of anesthesia. Like there's some good, makes sense. Training for pilots or whatever. Cool, I get that. But like in the mainstream of our society, do we need more storytelling with fancy gear?
I think it's not about the how much quantity you can pull out or how much you can tailor the message, right? It's just how many of these new elements in life that we have that we can use in order to make the story more compelling, right? There's a few advertisers that we all kind of wait for Christmas to kind of see what they're going to produce. And I think it's the same across the board. So meaning that the more things that we can make immersive, the more things that we can actually bring into the consumers, to the readers, to the story listeners, is just going to make it better. So I think it's definitely valuable. And my point is, bring it. The more you bring it, the more advertisers are going to use it, the more stories they're going to pull out, and hopefully they're better. They're not worse.
But you're talking advertising more than storytelling, dude. It's kind of
a big part of it of our life is
okay,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say why not, but of course good storytelling is very key. That's what's really missing out, and pity not to see people or platforms putting money into good storytelling. And why not? For example, now when you were raising this question, I came up with a thought about one experience I saw it in Berlin Film Festival. It was experience as you would use some kind of drug, Avayasko or something like this. Maybe you have heard of it. People go to Peru, to try it out, and there's a VR experience on this. So, for example, I'm doubtful if I would like to use that drug, but I can have a VR experience on that and decide, or and then I don't need to use the drug, And I could come up maybe with more examples like this. And I think what I feel about this critical thought, you really reflect me this film industry who's so into their storytelling. They are super good storytellers. There are a lot of good storytellers, but they are so into their format. They are so angry about Netflix. But come back to the users, not necessarily from what they really need, but why not? Why not to give out new formats and try out with them and just find the better stories? Or for example, when VR launched or had the hype, there's a bunch of also news platforms, New York Times, National Geographic, and so on, who brought a lot of interesting stories about. I had never been to Africa yet, but I have seen a lot of interesting stories coming from there. And of course, it was a bit like we call it poverty porn. But still, it gets the message through, and it's just another platform. And another word that was called VR, it's empathy machine. So really, it has a strength to prove and get you into the story, and why not? And I really like this momentum that when you in VR, you put the headset on and you just only you and the content. So yeah.
Okay, so you guys really want to talk about VR, so let's talk about VR. No, that's cool. Why hasn't it taken off? Like a lot of the tech world, regardless of its, of this kind of tech or Silicon Valley, everything, a lot of it is hype, right? Oh my God, everybody's going to do this, autonomous cars. In 2 years, all the cars in the world will be, it's not going to happen in our lifetime. But there's all this hype about it. So why hasn't VR taken off like we heard it was gonna just 2 years ago? I'm just curious to hear what you think. Why isn't it a thing? I know I have so many people in my life, not even my age, younger people, never tried goggles. Heard about it, sounds pretty cool, but they've never actually put them on their heads because they don't own them and they never see them. Why hasn't VR taken off?
I think it has to do with dominant design. For those who were in international business, you kind of get it. But essentially, we haven't seen a product that actually works. And to give you an examples of what dominant design is, right, is we used to have laptops which were, multiple cases of things you need to put together in order for it to become a laptop, right, that you can open up. And then this clamshell design kind of came out that you can just open it and it works, right? The same with smartphones, right? Nokia came out with a smartphone back in 1996. The thing is, it never lifted off because the design was so bad, right? It didn't create anything except for more issues for a person that's using it. So when Apple kicked out the first iPhones that were actually usable, they found the dominant design, the design that actually lifts off. I think it's the same with VR, right? They started off with being hooked to a computer and multiple devices and being, connected. Now it's getting there and there, and now we have devices that don't need to connect to anything. You just put it on and it works, right? So all of it is moving towards that. I think we're not there yet. So it depends for which specific need we would be talking about, whether VR has kicked in. If you want to create articles about VR, it has lifted off. You just search for anything and attach VR to it, you'll find tons of articles. They're going to pull your attention right next to it. But in terms of having it in every living room, we're still not there because there hasn't been a product that works exactly as humans would need it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's not yet among consumers. And business are stepping more and more into it. For example, watching from what the players does, Microsoft released their second headset, AR headset, which is called HoloLens, only for the industries, for the business. So user can't buy it. And for example, on the other side, and there is Google has the Magic Leap, invested in Magic Leap, another headset. for mixed reality, and then Facebook is the pusher actually in the industry for the consumer headset, and released a wireless Oculus Quest headset. So maybe, and also puts accents on gaming and Netflix and all this more video content. And then want to come back also to like why, because I think those gaming and tech industry is not really working, communicating, getting into friends with filmmakers, because they are super good storytellers, and there are so little, I try to follow European much more than other markets, but there are not many labs which bring them together to give and deliver those great stories from filmmakers. Also, there are Inarritu, Spielberg, few names who also work with this format, and then gamers or tech people just trying pushing the technology part. So I'm missing this collaboration more in the industries, and maybe that's the answers why it's not there for the consumers. But yeah, what I see what Facebook does, it's one of the players to move it that for consumers, and gaming is the key to launch it.
Okay, so for me, like my idea about why it hasn't taken off is like this human approach where if you're walking through a city, now you see people walking along watching a Game of Thrones episode as they walk down the sidewalk, fine. It's all there on our phones, right? But you still look super dorky, right? Seriously, I brought some goggles like 4 years ago to my office. I bought a pair, and all my staff, it was the first time for them, and I think we had like some 360 photo of some city. It was like pretty wild, and everybody's like putting them on and going, oh wow, and you know what they look like, doing this, and then everybody's just laughing their heads off at whoever had the goggles on. So for us as humans, it was like a bit of a strange thing. You look weird. And I was just going through there, there's somebody playing a video game, and it still looks dorky, right? And I think, it doesn't look like a human, like you've seen separated. And you're also physically separated and mentally separated from, whatever. You have to be in your home, at your computer, on your sofa or whatever. So it requires gear, and it requires to close yourself off from everything else, You can binge watch 8 hours of Game of Thrones, and if it's a bit of a boring part, you pick up your phone, right? And you just sort of check, and then now it's getting interesting again. But you can't do that. You're locked into this experience. And I'm not dissing the experience because it's pretty cool, the stuff we can do. But what do you think about that? I mean, you can't use it on the street. It's only something in your home. Is that a reason why it hasn't taken off, apart from all the professional applications, again, which are very, very useful, right?
I think it's spot on, right? Our life is so enriched with multiple things that we have. And come on, we're not going to go back to single screen environments, right? We're always going to have it. The question is, what do we do about it? What do developers actually, how can we incorporate it? I was one of the early buyers of the Google Glass, that project that died, of that kind of aluminum kind of ring and then tiny glass on the side. And that was considered the coolness factor of augmented reality, right? The first thing, something that's usable. I got it. It still looks dorky, right? Yeah. And I agree with you that unless it starts to look normal, like there's going to be a novelty. It's going to be one-time use. It's not going to be a mass adoption.
I think it's like Segways. Like Segways, they disappeared because they're just stupid, right? I mean, they serve no purpose, and you still see people in some cities, tourists riding them, and you still they just look dorky. Anyway, sorry, go.
I'm wondering now, do we really need that everyone has the goggles? I mean, is this the product? Maybe some only gaming arcades or some businesses or something, some venue specific. What's happening with Asia right now? They're launching tiny cafes, rooms where you can come and watch some content you choose. And I would bring back again the point that what's happening with the platform users. Also meaning Facebook, and it's less and less youngsters using, for example, Facebook comparing to Instagram. But of course, Instagram is also owned by Facebook, so they know everything. But and Snapchat, I mean, that's the generation who grew up with gaming, I think, or I don't have the percentage or numbers, but that's where connection comes. And like if you're Or that's my bubble where I live in, and what I see while I talk with gaming or people who game. and they are normal, they are experienced live through gaming, for example, and just for them it's just another platform, and they're, of course, again, I'm stressing that part of the community who want to new experiences. And I think I also want to point that now we live in the economy of experiences. And that's what people want. They want to try something new, experiences what they had never tried. And if there is some, bulky glasses, but if they give some interesting, new, exciting, relaxing experience, like why not?
Cool. I mean, you're optimistic, both of you. I mean, I got one more question because the time is running. But I mean, and that's fine. And I'm optimistic too. I'm not dissing the technology. I'm just questioning about whether we actually need it. But I mean, I totally forgot my question now. Do you have a question?
No, I can just wrap up, right? If the audience of a single game currently is about 200 million and people log in, 200 million people log in to play that game, there's definitely going to be an audience for VR and AR.
All right. Okay, now I remember my question. So the trend, my daughter's 12, and I'm from Denmark, high technological country, like here, fine. The trend is that the kids are going home and saying, Daddy, do you have your old Nokia, your old 3210 from the late 90s? And we all still keep them for some reason. And I'm going, yeah, I got that, it's here, and cool. That's the trend. The kids are just like using these old phones. And it's an awesome phone, the old Nokias, man. You just plug them in, charge them up, and they still work. They're going to survive the apocalypse, man, these phones. Seriously, get one now if when the Russians invade. Sorry, too soon. And Lithuanians too, yeah, sorry. No, but I mean, is there going to be a backlash? Like we see, like a young generation, they're starting to go back to the old phones because that's cool, and you can only text daddy, you can't FaceTime or whatever. I mean, could there be a backlash of people saying, oh, enough is enough. God, now I got to buy that. I got to download that. Come on. Are we going to go back to the roots?
I think various industries have backlashes, or various topics have backlashes, or if we watch in the politics what's happening, it's also, I would call it backlash also. So why not here?
Vinyl never died, right? So I don't think this is going to be as well, right? The majority of the masses, I think it's getting there, right? I think in some way, shape, or form, VR and AR is going to be there. Probably it's going to be more simple than what we have right now. Maybe not so much different, but simpler. But we're going to get there, and there's always going to be that specific group of people that still consider novelties. Vinyl, old cinema, old photos, still going to be there.
Polaroid. I got a Polaroid camera, man. Super expensive film. Like it's like €3 per photo, but I mean it's still kind of cool, right? Awesome. Time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you,
questions?
everyone.
Any questions?
I don't know if there's any brands or companies here in the room, but I have just one tip for them. Like, because we as a company get a lot of requests, like how much it would cost, and then usually we work with agencies, so they ask first, and then they have also kind of limited budgets, and then it's solution we can offer. And I have really one suggestion for the brands, that if you really have or if you want to really go into this and tap, because users like it, there is audiences who like these new exciting things, so really find the good cause why you're doing this, and then invest in it to have the proper solution, and then we don't have these backlashes maybe.
All right. If there's any questions, bring it on. If not, let's drink.
Not yet. I invite you all at the last panel at 7. We're going to talk about new narratives for new audiences.
Cool. We can drink
so
before
please
that.
come back.
Okay, a round of applause. Thank you very much. Michael, Mantas, and Eva. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, we're